Good morning, John and Join. Randall.
Good morning.
Good morning. And hey, Jack. Dialing into an open source working group from an open source conference.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Hey, Henrik.
So we know you're legit.
People want to sign in, that'd be great. Notice that the document link changed, so just need to update that. Yep. I'll tell you what, trying to do this on a laptop screen is a challenge. How are we all doing this?
Try a
fine?
phone.
Try a phone. Are you on a phone? Yeah, good luck adding your name to the notes on that, Randall.
I manage. But yes, every time you flip through screens, like Zoom mutes itself. So it's kind of, yeah, it's had its challenges.
Do we have the link to that notes in the chat, John?
Yeah, let me
The latest one. I think we need to update in the team meeting, right?
I think I just updated it, but let
You
me.
did? Okay, let me go back. Thank you.
I literally just did, but for the good of the order, let me put it in there as well.
Looks good. Thank you.
Drop it in there too. Right. Give it one more minute and then sort of dive in. So I know we've shifted around a little bit. This isn't our usual date, unfortunately. All right, should we kick off? And other people can join and jump in later. There's actually three members that are currently at the Finos Open Source Summit, which is where I'm at the moment. So likely another call. Right, before we start, anyone willing to act as scribe today? Any takers? I'm going to take Randall out of that.
Yeah, that would not be me.
I can try to help
bash
a little bit.
Oh,
John.
now you are.
Sure.
I'm gonna let you do it. I already did some scribing today.
All right, combination between Jacques and Georges. Thank you.
You type and I delete, if that's okay with you.
All right. And as always, we're going to start with new friends and new members. Anyone want to say hi? First time joining the group?
Not me.
Hi.
I'm joining second time here. So
Welcome.
thank
Anna,
you.
do you want to give an intro?
Yeah,
Hey.
I'm Sas from. I know. Well, I'm not sure you were asking me, but anyway.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm Sas from Mastercard. So I'm responsible for maturing supply chain security, DevSecOps, and secure SDLC at Mastercard. So I'm a principal architect here. So that's why I'm interested. And also, we are rolling up our open source governance policies, mostly from the consumer perspective. So that's why I think, and we are doing a collaboration with OpenSSF. So that's why this group interests me.
Sounds great. Welcome to the group. Anna, do you want to give an update?
Sure. Thank you. I'm just joining from city side. I work with John Meadows teams. So I've been part of OpenSSF Alpha Omega project, and now I'm trying to get into the end users side of it as well and learn more from you folks and see if I can be of any help here. Thank you.
Welcome, Anna. And I also want to point out that Anna has been helping a lot on Alpha Omega, which is one of the things that I really believe in. So very cool. Thanks for that. Right. I think that the first or the main point of the day is the threat model work, and a couple of things we wanted to sort of go through around different time and just make sure that people are set up appropriately. But before we get into that, Henrik, do you want to perhaps give a bit of an update, because that is one of the main deliverables we're trying to work through as a group.
All right, yeah, of course. I'm happy to do so. So first of all, the document moved. Amanda was so kind to take a copy from my private Google Drive and move it to the OpenSSF drive, which I very appreciate. I also did a couple of updates of the document, which I think are at least two of them are noteworthy. The first is I better describe the objectives in the beginning. I made a couple of track changes, so please feel free to review. Main update, I think, is that I try to better explain that it is all about identifying the threats on those software development infrastructures and processes of larger organizations, independent whether malware or malicious actors come through malicious open source packages or through other channels. I think there was a little bit of ambiguity, and I hope my changes to the introduction make this a little bit clearer. The second thing is I finally managed to come up with it was not with a small table to better structure and describe threats in a more systematic fashion. So we have a impact, description, severity, and a couple of other 2-3 let's say properties of every threat, which was missing in the past and which resulted in a little bit of an unstructured bullet item list, which I didn't like so much. So we didn't overcomplicated the properties and how to describe those threats. I think if ever needed, this can be done at a later point in time. I think it's at least in my opinion of the right granularity and detail to start with. The other things is right. I mean, we came up with this very Europe-friendly, convenient time slot on a Tuesday 3 o'clock that I very much appreciated. But in the retrospective, it was a little bit maybe ad hoc selected, and so I've created a new doodle in order to basically have a broader agreement on when to meet and work on this document. The link is in the Google document in front of you, so please participate. And I think the slots I have considered so far try to kind of make it acceptable both for Europe until and also the West Coast of the United States. Right, and then there are two questions that came up during the discussions. One was mentioned by Randall last time. How do we actually want to distribute the results of this effort? Will this be a PDF document? Will this be markdown documents in a GitHub repository? How do we want to communicate this? I think that is something we can already start, thinking about, even though I think we still need a couple of weeks until the content is mature enough to be distributed.
Should we just talk about that? I'm just wondering if anyone else is on the call has got, I mean, is there any particular precedence? Certainly within the CNCF, I think we were creating a PDF and a markdown. Does anyone have any particular bias one way or the other, or any guidance from?
The best working group basically set up a website that takes the markdown documents and displays them as a website. So there's that.
Yeah, I think we should figure out, is this supposed to be a living document or a white paper style kind of thing?
Good point.
Because that might determine whether or not we would go for the best working group approach and the guides they have, or even ask LF if they would kind of lay out this as a typical LF white paper thing.
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, looking how many new OpenSSF initiatives seem to pop up on a regular basis, I have the feeling there is a continued need placing those and relating those to each other and to those threads that we identify. So even though the term living document is maybe used a little bit, you know, yeah. So, oh no, let's say it differently. Living document is maybe a good thing to have, considering all these things going on at the OpenSSF.
I think it's good, but I just wondered, at the very least, we need to version it, right? And just make sure, you know, I think it'd be useful to have like a 0.1 cut of the document, save it down as a PDF, and at least that's an artifact that can perhaps been passed around with versioning and not necessarily updated. And then if people want to contribute and add to the living document, they can certainly come back to the group, look at the work, the markdown, and you have the ability to edit it, but also like a point in time version that we can discuss.
And that could be set up as a GitHub action so that whenever we make a tagged commit, it automatically just builds the PDF and uploads it to releases. This is all we've done before.
Sounds reasonable.
All right, sounds like a plan. Good. I mean, I guess it would be, yeah, okay. The scribe already took care. Jacques.
Just a quick note with if you choose to go down the website route, even with versioning, I would talk to David A. Wheeler, who's on the OpenSSF staff. He helped to set up the best working group website, and so he'd be the person to talk to about that.
Yeah, I said, I think we still have some time until we release version 1, but yeah, it's good to start a discussion around it already now. Right, and the other question that came up, I think 2 sessions ago, was around how Git is typically used in enterprises. So, I mean, in principle, it is a decentral versioning control system, but many corporations, you know, set it up by convention in a central fashion where you have a leading Git server, and then this is where the developers sync with. And so, and we wondered, so we wanted to know whether this is just a wrong or a correct intuition that this is the way it is typically done in larger companies. And if so, we will maybe focus more on this setup going forward than the decentral setup, which I think is used for Linux, but maybe that is the big exception. Yeah.
Check.
Speaking for myself, at least, I've never seen a decentralized use of Git in the Linux kernel style. I would say that the main variation I've seen is between sort of trunk-based development and pull request-based development. And within pull request-based development, I would say the main difference I've seen is between single pull request at a time and merge queues where they get batched up and released multiple at a time into production.
Yeah, I'd agree. I've seen a couple of organizations, you always say, that are using a a single GitHub server, obviously replicated and massively scaled out, but a single as opposed to the distributed approach.
All right. And Jacques, I think what you said, that refers to kind of the Git workflow used on top, right? I'm not sure we want to go down this road and distinguish any further, but yeah, I see the point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I've got like a spider sense tingling about the difference between organizations where they do a PR at a time and a merge request at a time, but I guess there's no difference in threat. There's really just a difference in response. Right, like a single PR has X% chance of being bad and naughty and evil, but it really depends on how quickly you can, or how much you have to roll back to respond.
And maybe also how big those pull requests become that require review, and which is kind of determining or influencing the chances of seeing any malicious thing, if ever it is in. All right. Yeah, that's a good point.
One thing to note is I think a lot of organizations, due to Dependabot, at least in the GitHub universe, and I know GitLab have something equivalent, is very often now, didn't used to be the case, but now it's very often the case that dependency upgrades happen independently of feature work, because the bot creates specific things. So like, it used to be that you had all these things mixed together. Like ill-disciplined teams would just like write some code and they'd throw in an upgrade in the middle of it, right? Because they're like, oh, I need an upgrade, boom, right? And so you just get this salad of changes. I was never a huge fan, but it's gotten better. So the reason that that's important is, again, like the cost of response is lower if it's a narrow targeted change versus a fruit salad.
Yeah.
I think Randall wants to contribute. Randall, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, it's kind of a related topic, which is, so part of this conversation came from some of the other conversations I had at LF. And I did show this to some of my colleagues in the training and certification team. And there is a concern that apparently gets voiced about us as OpenSSF not focusing on open source and focusing on closed source software. There's that. And it was also pointed out to me that there are some very large companies that do use Git in a decentralized manner. I too have not seen this, but apparently it does happen. Just not something I've interacted with. So I just wanted to put those two things out there for consideration as well.
I mean, I guess at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is build an abstract architecture for an enterprise. It's not stating that this is the standard that everyone adheres to or the only one that it's there, but it's a reasonable representation of what an enterprise could look like. So if you put one, it's not saying that people don't use distributed. It's just that that was the assumption and the initial architecture that was put forwards. Others likely exist, but this is a sort of common stake in the ground.
Fair. I was just sharing basically what's right now being said.
Totally. Maybe we put that as like an assumption of or a statement within the document. At the end of the day, it's an abstract architecture, right?
And I'm also trying to get one of my colleagues to our meetings with Henrik as well, so that he could provide more details. But I know that he's very close to Linus and the kernel developers. And yeah, that was why I do think that a lot of his thoughts are interesting. But I do know across like the LF community in general, there is a lot of talk about how OpenSSF strays from the open source mission they're supposed to be on. And I don't know if as a group that actually helps us or not. I kind of feel like it doesn't.
Is it worth bringing that feedback to the tech? Like that feels like
they know
not just an end users thing.
I believe that Tim and I share this with Omakadar, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but they're aware.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, good.
Yeah,
that's good to hear.
Now, whether or not that was taken in the right light or not, because there were other, shall we say, issues with that whole meeting in general, I don't know.
Great. So I think there was an agreement on that we continue on this assumption that there is a central setup in these kind of typically a central setup in the organizations in the focus of this threat modeling workshop. Great. Already put this into the document. Yeah, maybe. And the last comment on this work is, so now that we have this kind of table structure to describe threats, I will take the time to move the existing bullet points into those tables, and then I hope the document is in a shape that it can be better consumed by others. So would be happy to receive your feedback. I hope to have this done by kind of Tuesday next week when we have the next session. But yeah, I always struggle a little bit to do this in the 3 or 4 hours or so a week I can dedicate to this.
Yeah. Just to add to that, we've got a group of threat modelers at City that are taking a look and trying to coordinate actually attending at the right time, but taking a look offline. And I've asked them to contribute back to the document and join the meeting as well. So that gives additional backup. How do you feel? Because I'm reading through the document and looking through there's some good detail there already. I mean, you can always go further with threat models. You never find the end. What's your feeling about it, Henrik, in terms of completeness or to level aside?
I think it's true that we touched upon a number of things, but I still feel we just scratched on the surface. I very much enjoy those discussions, but at the very end at the top of the hour, we basically discussed 2 or 3 of those things in detail, which is a lovely discussion, great, but it's not giving me the feeling we progress there on a significant steep and reach with a significant speed and reach completeness in the foreseeable future. So yeah.
I mean, when some of our when I've seen threat models go into a lot of detail, it could be weeks and a month or 2 of really dedicated full-time work. So we've got to be reasonable, I think, on what we're going to expect from our group.
Yeah, I think if we stay at high level, I think it will be difficult to differentiate from existing other works. If we go into the details, we can be more. Yeah, I think there will be such a difference, but that will be just taking a lot more time. So
yeah,
torn between the extremes here.
Yeah. Well, I think reasonable to continue though, right? I mean, there's certainly a lot more interest. Yep. The thing I was thinking about was after we all got together in Vancouver, or a number of us did, one of the outputs we were looking at from an end user working group was effectively a threat model to then help with the other parts of OSSF. We should probably think about what success looks like in that regard. When do we get to good enough? If we're not there at the moment, do we time box it or do we bottom it out in some other way? Any thoughts?
So my idea would be so what we do right now is we basically go from one system of that infrastructure to the next and try to come up with those threats. Until now, we covered 2. Well, we touched upon 2. There are a couple of other systems to be looked at. So my idea would be to continue down this road. As I said, I very much enjoy those discussions. And then at some point in time, I would start linking the OpenSSF initiatives and see whether this fits together, whether they address the things, whether we describe them in sufficient detail such that, you know, this is matching. And maybe that is a way to also assess whether we require more detail and whether we.
¿Qué le pasó?
¿Quién le ha abierto?
En el
That's-
meeting. Yo le vi porque
Me lo han
estaba.
dicho, se para leyendo
Randall,
totalmente
I
la
Deja la
think you're,
cabeza, pues.
Ven para acá.
Yeah, well, that's
good
would be
feedback,
my
Randall.
would be my would be my take.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I wonder if it'd be even worthwhile drafting what the architecture, what even today the overlap would be with the other standards, even with the architecture we currently have, and put that at the bottom as sort of a draft. Assuming this is the threat model in the draft, this is where SALSA fits, S2, C2F sits. Just get that initial view. Might start to bring out some additional threats, because we know that SALSA roughly fits in one place and it's supposed to be mitigating N threats. Well, it kind of maps it straight back up to the threat model, gives you a bit of an easy indication. Just a thought. I'll ask some of our chaps to take a look as well, maybe. Yep. Okay, so quick reminder of the current time for that meeting. Tuesday. What time is it?
Right now it's Tuesday, 3 o'clock in CEST in Europe, Central Europe time.
Yep. And there's a doodle poll looking for an additional one or different. Yep. I put the doodle poll in there, didn't I? Yep, I did. Yep. Is there any particular favorite time that's looking reasonable at the moment?
Right now, I looked earlier. I think it is Monday evening, my time. Just go there. Yeah, current favorite is 6:30 Central Europe time. So this would be a 9:30 West Coast, US West Coast.
Take your word for it. Okay, cool. All right. More work there, but I think there's some good progress there. There's a lot of detail in that document already. So good to see that progress. That's cool. Nice work. Should we move to the next topic? SBOM-RAMA. Did anyone make the call or take a look at that? I thought I'd give a bit of an update if no one else has been to it. So SBOM-RAMA, the conference put on by CISA, Dr. Alan Friedman. There's some interesting presentations, and they've got some interesting working groups going on. I think it's definitely a fluid space, and I think they presented, well, I presented on the finance side. There was automotive and pharmaceuticals presenting, leveraging SBOMs as they looking to secure supply chains using that focus approach, as you'd imagine. Really interesting feedback from automotive and pharma in how far they've got with their POCs. I think there's a number of challenges that were raised around the SBOM quality and naming, but it's clear that people are really trying to use them and use them almost in anger. There's a couple of working groups that we've often sort of suggested as end users we'd probably want to jump into, and they presented some interesting stuff. So I'd recommend, if people haven't looked at it, taking a look at the working groups and some of that material. The SBOM-RAMA, I'm fairly sure is, well, it certainly was recorded. I don't know when it's going to be represented. Some interesting feedback on I think it was the tools working group in terms of interesting stuff. There was a couple of really good slides detailing different SBOMs and the implications of what the SBOM would look like if it was taken at different parts of the SDLC, whether it's build, pre-build, deploy, runtime, operations, the whole lot. And there's a really good diagram showing a sort of circular SDLC and the implications and effectively naming these different SBOMs. I think I've seen them talking about it before, but I think that was quite insightful in terms of, number of people have been saying that SBOMs are different if they're taken at different parts of the SDLC, which is accurate. But this is a nice diagrammatic way of showing when and why, and start to talk about the tooling. So I think that was really, really very, very useful. So recommend people take a look at that as it comes up. I'm sure the slides are going to be published as well of people looking at the SBOM community. And I think the healthcare POC, they actually have a meeting every month, and I believe it's open. So if people are interested in looking at SBOMs or how different communities are leveraging them, I'm pretty sure that the HBOM, the healthcare sector, has a meeting you can attend and get some more detail. They were also the group that published, or the chair, I believe they were the group that published Daggerboard, which is an interesting piece of software to manage your SBOMs. So worth a look. No one's taken a look. Right, so that's me. Any other feedback from any other working groups that people have attended? It's been a couple of weeks. Seems like conferences are going on left and right.
Well, it's summer.
Yeah. Cheap holiday, right? Didn't quite make it to California. It's still...
famously easy to travel during summer in the US.
Yeah.
One thing I guess I can advise on is coming from the Securing Software Repos group. There is an effort forming for Alpha Omega to chip in money for audits to be performed, and also to pay for contractors or donations to get remediations. So a lot of a lot of software repositories have not had audits done in the past, and we're all just sort of like sailing along, hoping that nothing bad happens. So the effort there is to fund some of those efforts, particularly for organizations where it's volunteer operated and they just don't have the time and resources themselves to do it.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's exciting because it's a very high leverage point. In retrospect, it's like, why didn't we think of this sooner?
Very nice. Anna, sorry to put you on the spot, but is there an update maybe from the Alpha Omega group, public update?
I have to recall, but mainly they are, there is step security team that has presented, and the work is being looked at as scorecard work to be allocated towards OpenSSF. That's going to be added in. And there is mentoring that's started this summer. So the team is working on the scaling and automation of finding the disclosures. So that's being active right now. And there is also a summer Purdue program that is just starting or started, they are very much interested. So that's also in works. Couple of this week has been, as you said, conferences. So there's not much of the feedback from the stakeholders, or we couldn't get together with the updates on the Alpha front as such. But lots of work is getting done on the Omega side, and securing repository, the disclosures. Those are the areas that they are currently, working on. Though they are doing automation, we are requesting them to focus on just spitting out some kind of an output with the outcomes, so we can have some kind of visibility into it. Probably we should be able to see some kind of a report result with that kind of, how many vulnerabilities have been found, what are in progress, assertions, and such. So that's the focus that's going on. It's quite going on, active now. So it's exciting.
Anna, you're talking about this step security, right? They're building a.
Yep.
I recently, had a chance to talk with them. They're building a product on the supply chain security, mainly monitoring side.
Right.
I think they're developing they have developed an agent which can go in the build workers or in the Jenkins to measure and monitor anomalous activities happening, like the outbound connectivities and all. And they'll be able to show you the reports based on that, and that report is available within Jenkins and can be associated with the build jobs.
Right, they're going to select or run those, like say a stack of them, a volume of them, and then give a quick spit of report of it. And we are saying, how complementary of will they be in compared to our set of the analyzers as well. So that's the idea. But we are kind of helping or guiding and reviewing their work, and just providing some kind of strategic guidance to them as well. So probably moves towards the scorecard work of OpenSSF, as I said. And there's others. I see ISRG has been coming into as well, John, like into the alpha. So that's Prosimo. So that's another one, a major one that we are looking at too.
Good,
So
good.
more details, if I don't want to divulge, because I'm not sure, where the steps of the process in onboarding and all contracts are. So I'm just trying to keep it because I can't recall as of right now. Yep.
Thanks, Anna. Henrik, you got your hand up?
Yes, that is still on this SBOM generation. I'm not sure whether we are past this topic, but I just wanted to say that I was looking at this kind of in March or so, and I created a small, no, actually it's kind of a shell script that is also open sourced, with which you can try and automate basically the running different open source SBOM generators at different SDLC cycles, and then compute in an automated fashion the recall, meaning those components that we consider to be the minimum should be included at every stage, and to what extent those different SBOM generators miss those. And it should be relatively, it's only for Java Maven projects, but it should be relatively straightforward to do this for any other Maven project by just means of configuration. And the life cycle phases covered are basically, there are SBOM generators run after cloning a project, after building it, on the container, and at runtime. And so and then those are automatically compared. It's all Cyclone DX. I can post the link to the kind of the summary of that work plus the open source repository with the shell script into the chat.
Great idea. In the notes would be great.
That would be great.
George,
Thank you, Henrik.
George.
Connecting to that right away. Henrik, have you been part of the OpenSSF tooling working group discussions recently? Maybe I missed you, but that's also what I anyway wanted to mention as a short readout here. But this nicely connects now. So they, as part of the overall effort of figuring out what an overarching plan could look like to foster the adoption of SBOMs in the open source project ecosystem, they, like this working group, is now looking at collecting experiences kind of from people, developers who have already, let's say, done the task of integrating an SBOM generator. It doesn't matter at which state, or with an open source project. And so now they are, last week, I think they had 2 presenters presenting kind of their experience. Next week, a colleague of mine is scheduled to talk about her experience with Istio, implementing an SPDX SBOM as part of their build process. And I think what you just mentioned would also be very interesting to just make the group aware of. So, like,
yeah, would be happy to
feel free
present.
to let them know, or I can also take it back if you want. But and it's your work, so I don't want to. I would just point to it.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to. I think I will not be attending. I feel there are too many work groups to attend. So, but feel free to share
Fair
those
enough.
links. And if ever there is a need for a presentation, I would be happy to say 15 minutes about it, or 10 minutes, whatever time is necessary.
Okay, but yeah, if you wanted to add links to our.
I put it in the chat, but I can.
Okay, then I'll grab it from there, because
I'll,
chat links are not very persistent.
And now I copied them into the
Thank you.
Just
document.
adding to the SBOM conversation for a second, it was interesting talking to different people about their usage of SBOMs at the moment, and from different groups, they're starting to use SBOMs internally, at least, as they're coding and building out own software, generating SBOMs, storing them and leveraging them for vulnerability management. But I think it's the healthcare and pharmaceutical sectors that are absolutely leading the way in using them externally. Certainly from my experience, there's not an awful lot of SBOMs being sent and distributed. But obviously I'm in a smaller vacuum. But what I am definitely seeing is people using them internally. And one of the other interesting parts of that is, and I think it goes back to the different SDLCs and where within the SDLC the SBOMs are generated. But a lot of people have shifted left and they're providing vulnerability data up to developers in tools and such. But they're starting to generate SBOMs in CI/CD. And people are trying to look at the difference between the two. If we're telling developers one thing and then the next minute we're hitting them with a different level of vulnerabilities in the build, how do they reconcile between the two when we spend a lot of money showing people how to shift left? So I think the diagram highlighting, well, you got more information, it's a different point in the build, and that's why you've got different information. I think that's a useful one. So yeah, so more interest in SBOM, that's for sure. Any other updates from different groups?
I just want to add those couple of meetings. If anybody is interested about the Alpha Omega work, right? There is vulnerability disclosure sync AutoFix calls that they're available if you're interested, or looking at securing repositories calls. One is on Wednesday and the other one is on Tuesdays. Just take a look for it. It's on the OpenSSF calendar, and also we have a public meeting. So that's those informative sessions that you want to join and learn more about it, or even participate and help them with the disclosure, vulnerability disclosure, AutoFixing process, because they're very actively looking for, people that can help them as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, any other business? One thing I was going to ask is, I think we need to get additional support on the threat modeling work, helping you out, Enrique. Certainly from our org, I'm trying to get additional groups in, but I wonder if anyone knows of any budding threat modelers or groups that have spare bandwidth. It'd be good to see if we could reach out to people, see if they have the interest of diving in and helping, particularly if they're experienced at threat modeling. Maybe that's something we can reach out to others.
Sorry, I can help here. So I have developed a threat modeling, pattern-based threat modeling practice in MasterCard. And I have an objective to develop a threat model on CI/CD. So that is anyway matching what you guys are trying to do. So I can definitely contribute.
Fantastic. Yes, thanks for that. That'd be really, really helpful. I think it's good to get different groups in there as well, right? Rather than just having the same sort of a group of opinions. So fantastic. Looking forward to help. All right. Any other business anyone wants to discuss or raise?
I was going to suggest maybe having multiple times for the threat modeling, because I can get different people there at different times. It's really hard to get certain people early, and yeah.
Randall, are you lobbying for another doodle poll?
Maybe.
We all own shares in Doodle, right? We're all getting value out of this.
Yeah. I don't know how to respond to that, I guess. And Enrique, I guess let's see how we get people signing up to different times, and maybe if there's a couple of groups, maybe we can do that. What do you think?
Yes, I mean, so far we just have 4 people who voted, and so let's see how many other votes come in. Maybe we can build 2 groups, but my current feeling is that by going for 6:30 European time, this is covering most parts of the US, and I hope your connections, Randall, are able, even maybe if they're sitting on Hawaii, it's getting difficult, but California should be doable, I would say.
Well, the thing about it is that LF has a very loose working schedule, so I'm the one that like wakes up early and gets people organized because I'm a manager. But a lot of people are starting about that time, and they really don't free up until maybe 1 or 2 o'clock Western time, which is what's difficult.
Yeah. Age-old problem
Pacific
of
time, I guess.
Yeah, of people working in different regions, right? You're going to take out Europe if you do it that late, but yeah, people on the West Coast. Maybe let's see how it goes. People can always contribute to the document offline, right?
Yeah, Randall, maybe if you want, I can add some additional options at some other time slots for those guys. What do you think? Does it make sense? What would be?
Let's try out the time that we have, and let's see if that helps the situation. I know with Bean, who's the guy that was talking about Git specifically, I know that it's kind of early for him. But I know for Glenn, who's another person that would be a good resource for you, he's in European time because he's in Belgium. So it's kind of difficult to figure out. Glenn is basically the senior cybersecurity instructor at LF. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so more power to threat modeling, right? I think that's still the main thing that we're trying to push ahead. We get that done, and then we're in decent shape. All right. If there's no other business, we'll close a couple of minutes early. All right. Have a good summary day, everyone.
Thank you, you too. Thank you all.
Talk to you all later. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.